Hi everybody. So today I wanted to talk to you just a little bit about the Japanese religion of Shinto, Shinto, and so I'm just going to start off giving you a little bit of brief information. And right from the Funk and Wagnalls encyclopedia, Shinto is the way of the gods. So when we look at Shinto and we remember our discussion about Taoism being the way, Shinto also is very similar, and it's the way of the gods. And so we'll understand that this is a sort of a permeating concept of people, especially indigenous peoples around the world, and because this has some connection to nature, the universe, self. It includes animals and ancestors. And if we were to even look at, most of you know that I lived in Hawaii for a long time, and if we were to look at Hawaiian sort of religion, it's also polytheistic in that they believe in gods. The Lono, Pele, who everybody knows Pele because she's on the Big Island. She manages fire, right? The goddess of fire. And it could be that it's an island thing to really appreciate your land and your nature, because to live, you must really take care of the land around you. In Hawaiian we would call it pono, the land. You must really take care of it, and you must respect all of nature, because I mean, you're, aside from people who would travel back in these times of the implementation of these religions, traveling was probably next to impossible for most people. So you're really on an island, and you're surrounded by water, and there may be nearby islands, but all of that needs to be very well respected and revered and taken care of. So Shinto being the way of the gods are called kami, Kami, and they include all the things that I just talked about. So Shinto has no founder. It has no written documents before the 8th century AD. Shinto was founded right around the same time, or the mythology behind it was founded right around the same time sort of Taoism was founded, about 500 to 600 years before Christ, BC. There is no list of formalized ethics. There's no system of dogmatic beliefs. There is no inclusive canon or scripture, and no specific organized system of theology. And I'm actually looking at a website here from World Religions. So we get a feel for it. Has some similarity with Taoism, and we understand it to be the way. We do know that it wasn't long. What I mean by it wasn't long is, we do know that at some point when the Chinese religions of Buddhism came into Japan, that it actually, Shinto sort of got sucked up into Buddhism, and was overpowered and was almost sort of overtaken and sort of put out of a belief system for many years. I believe it's around the 18th century AD when it was sort of founded or re-established, because Buddhism had come in and taken over so much of Japan and its belief system. But as it relates in Shintoism, there are 4 affirmations. So the word Shinto, as I said, means the way of the gods. It's a broad path for offering a pattern of rites. So there are Shinto shrines that people go to. It has the 4 basic affirmations are of tradition, of life in this world, of purity, and of festival. And so when we relate those back to the topic of achieving harmony in and with the world, and if we just look at those 4 affirmations, tradition is very important. So, and as we know in Japanese culture, tradition is very important. I mean, even to this day, there's still a lot of traditional aspects to the way that group of people, the way that they live. So that's important that we understand that. As Americans, we have a harder time understanding that, but that's because our culture is so new. The country itself, being European colonized, is only a couple of 100 years old, so we don't have these strong traditions that date back to the BC time period, and so Americans have a harder time to understand, like, why is culture and tradition so important, but it is. And so one of the ways to sort of affirm yourself and connect to Kami, to Kami, the gods, connect to the universe, to connect to spiritualism or to God, tradition would be very important. So there are aspects of things that have to be done when they go into a shrine. I'm not going to go into those details, but there are some formal procedures that people would go through. The second one, in the of life in this world, so an affirmation of life in the world, so you have to respect life around you. You respect plants, you respect animals, you respect the earth, you respect the sun, you respect the weather, you respect your ancestors and your family and your friends. There's a level of sort of respecting life. And again, this might be sort of an island thing, although with Taoism, finding the way, it's not an island, but in Japan, that island sort of thought process may be what takes over. I understand this island theories because of living in Hawaii. So many people who were there are from other island nations, including places like the Philippines and the Polynesian islands, Samoa and Tonga, and some of the Micronesian islands. They have a strong connection to their life being this land, the animals, the plants, the air, the water, etc. And then of purity, and so I'm not going to define what that means because I would have to actually do a significant amount of research to understand what Shinto would consider purity, but we could understand the word purity based on sort of Christian beliefs of what that is. And then of festival, and there's something to be said again for celebrations, and festival goes on everywhere. If we look at the Catholic religions, there are the festivals. It's more celebrations of Christ's birth, right? Even the death of Christ is celebrated, especially the resurrection. So we see celebration happen around, and festivals in the islands, so including in Japan, are very important for community. And so all of these are part of Shinto, which is the way of the gods. And so the festivals would be a little bit more formalized in what happens and what they're about, but they would be celebrating what is versions of universal life force and connection to the earth. And so again, when we talk about our achieving harmony in and with the world, the Shinto sort of practice of acknowledging the world around you, the festivals probably have some connections even to harvests and things like that, changing of seasons depending on how the seasons go in Japan. But that level of respect is something that people would ascribe to, and especially in days of before technology was in play, because your life literally depends on the land, the air, and the water, the animals around you. And as it still does, but we don't comprehend this the same way in today's age, because we have access to food and everything in different ways. Back then, your access to food was to grow it and then harvest it, or you grew something and somebody else grew something else, and you would grow and harvest and then trade. But nowadays, that thought process is a little bit different. So people, to understand those 4 affirmations, we have to look a little deeper into ourselves to figure out what that means to us. All right, so that's just a little basic about that, and I shall talk to you again.